In terms of entrepreneurship and on the subject of entrepreneur, my viewpoint is slightly different to the Wikipedia definition. And Wikipedia talks about somebody who starts a business, takes a risk, and actually drives that business forward. I think it's a little bit more than that. It's a mindset of a person and a mindset of somebody who's a goal-getter, and usually somebody who's a chief evangelist of an organization, who is a driving force of an organization, somebody who's got the energy, the passion, and combined with the skill set to actually get a business going. And I think that's the key for me. So I think the language itself, English language, does evolve. People's opinions and viewpoints do evolve, and it's a topic that a lot of people do talk about now in terms of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. But for me, it's that that sort of covers it in terms of how I think about an entrepreneur. There's no doubt it's a buzzword at the moment. A lot of people talk about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. Back in 1992, there was a university, the university that I went to had a course which was a Bachelor of Science in Entrepreneurship, and we had no takers at all. Not many people were interested in that. It was a word that, it wasn't common. It wasn't part of our vocabulary. It was about business, and the word business was I would say, something that we were all comfortable with. But I think what's happened is the language does evolve, and entrepreneurship has become a bit of more of a sexy, if I dare say, buzzword. But the concept of an entrepreneur is probably slightly different to maybe a business owner. A business owner or somebody who runs a business, there's a slight, there's a small difference, but there is a slight difference in terms of a mindset of a person. There's people who own businesses, who sort of invested capital, and maybe family businesses and so forth. But entrepreneur defines the person who actually has started, ignited a business, is a catalyst for a business, and is a driving force of it. And I think the definition needs that clarity, because of this sort of the amount of startups that have happened, particularly in the last 20 to 30 years. There's many more businesses that are being born. More people are starting businesses, and I think there needs to be a little bit of a clarity between maybe a business owner per se and somebody who actually starts a business. It's a number of things and a combination of things. There's a school of thought which says that an entrepreneur is anybody who's self-employed. And in that respect, a taxi driver, a private hire driver is an entrepreneur. I don't believe in that, and I don't subscribe to that school of thought. For me, an entrepreneur is anybody who starts a business which is a commercial, with the aim of being a commercial, profitable enterprise that eventually will run itself and employ people, and you're creating wealth. In terms of the growth in businesses and business startups, is again a number of factors there. Technology has allowed us to learn more about entrepreneurship, be more open to it. That's in terms of information, that's in terms of actually learning and knowledge. So there's more opportunities there. There's a lot more with regard to freedom within the legal framework in terms of starting a business and so forth. I think that's been a little bit easier. And again, general encouragement in terms of, if you go back to the 80s and the 90s, there's been a general encouragement in terms of actually business growth, back in the Thatcher years, in terms of actually starting businesses and growing businesses. So it's been a positive thinking, and people find themselves in situations where the opportunity arises. Currently there's a lot more people that are over the age of 50 going into a business, and that may be because they've taken early retirement, that may be because of redundancies, that may be because of a situation and a time in their life They maybe possibly have less commitments. They're in a position where they can actually utilize that expertise. What we also find is, younger people. It's a topic that they've sort of seen on TV. I think programs such as Dragon's Den and The Apprentice have had some impact. These are programs that probably started off in 2004-05. They've had some impact as well. And again, generally, with the growth of YouTube and channels, people see that as a way to grow. And in some cases, people are doing it for the money aspect of it. They see that entrepreneurship generally leads to wealth. It doesn't necessarily mean that, and it's not always the case. But they see that as a way to grow themselves financially and better themselves. The mindset of an entrepreneur is definitely we should all embrace. There's no negativity with regard to that. I don't think everybody can become a business owner or an entrepreneur. And not everybody should consider it as part of their ambitions. Having a career and progressing within the career in the traditional route is something that has a place. Something that I think people should look at. In a positive light, not the fact that it's just a job or I'm just in a particular role. There's a lot of opportunities in terms of working within businesses and organizations. It does have a lot of stresses. People tend to see all the positive sides or the sides of, that you have got more freedom, more choice, more money, but it's not always the case. A lot of risks involved. And it's not suitable, it's not right for everybody. And there's fantastic sort of books on this particular subject, E-Myth Revisited, and people think that just because they're good at a particular topic or a subject matter that they would make a success of a business. So there's a lot of things that you need to think, particularly with regard to taking the sort of jump or leap in terms of going into business. The rate of startups of fail is increasing, and that's mainly because it's in some cases a bit too easy to go into business, and there's, as I said, people probably not considering their skill sets. There's possibly lack of planning, lack of strategy, and not realizing that there's a whole sort of lot of ingredients that go into it. In terms of the failure. There's different stats, and some of the stats talk about more than 50% failing within 3 years now, rather than 5 years, and even depending on where you get your information from, even up to 70% failing. So definitely there's a lot more failures. Business is generally a very lonely place, and it's ups and downs. But business is a magnet of problems. You're constantly problem solving. You not only do you have to balance the books, not only do you have to have a mechanism of getting the money in. You've got to look at sales, you've got to look at the legal aspect of it, risk from a risk perspective, from a marketing perspective. There's a whole raft of things, and if you're then employing people, taking people on, there's a whole raft of things, and if you've got a specialist skill. What you'll find is, here you need to be a generalist, and you need to be a good generalist, particularly if you're head of a smaller business, and you've got to be able to juggle many things. And what people find is that they're very good at certain things, they're specialists, and specialism unfortunately isn't really for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs need to be very good generalists, and very good at doing or at least half decent or good at doing a multiple of things. And I think if you're just good at maybe one aspect of it, what you'll find is entrepreneurship or the starting a business is going to be a little bit more harder for yourself. I don't think anybody is born to be a particular profession. It's a topic that I see often in papers. I think YouTube is full of it. Is entrepreneurship, is it nature or nurture? That's the sort of thing, that's the sort of question. Is it nature or is it nurture? And there's an element of both. Nobody goes into something without actually developing a skill set. Nobody's born to be an international rock star. You have to have some element of talent, but you have to hone that talent. I mean, nobody's going to win so the London Marathon without training. But the ingredients need to be there. There needs to be some substance there, and then you hone that skill, and a lot of work goes into it. It's not going to happen overnight, and that's you need coaches, you need trainers, you need to learn and develop. And if you take on that approach of constantly growing, learning, with the mindset of actually achieving a goal, with the ability to not give up if that is your vision, but not to be afraid to give up if need be, or change your mind or alter that, and being in a position where you can adapt to the situation and differing situations, then I think that's where we are. It's very difficult to say that somebody is a natural born entrepreneur. We're a combination of the environment we're in. Our influences do influence us, the people around us do influence us. So if you're in an environment where this is what people are talking about, if it's a family of business owners and this is what they do and they'll talk about, you've got possibly a slightly higher chance. If you've got the sort of some of the natural sort of ingredients and abilities, then it'll be easier for you. But in terms of my own perspective, there's a lot of skills that I've learned and developed, and I think there's always things that you can improve on. You can improve on certain skill sets like negotiation, persuasion. There's massive topics that have been written about, but you've got to have that ambition to do so. That's in a roundabout way, I would say it's a combination of both. I think we all have dark moments. We all have moments where we're thinking is what if and so forth. But I think it's important, if you've taken a course of action, we are the result of our decisions, and we've made these decisions consciously. I'm here, and then what happens is that if you're in a position where you've got commitments, I'm not just talking about financial commitments where people are relying on you and so forth, you quickly go back and realize that this is my bed and I've got to lie on it, and I'm in a better position. And when I was in that position of financial services or whatever, this is what my dream was. Now, I'm here just because I'm having a tougher time because I've got a problem, or I'm dealing with a difficult situation. That moment will pass. And sometimes what works for me is thinking, will I be thinking about this 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and that puts it into context. And I think it's having that sort of mindset of really reframing your issue and being able to deal with that. And a lot of it is about problem solving, but it's also having the right mindset and reframing a lot of this. Having a support structure, I think, is absolutely vital, and having the right support structure enables anybody then to keep on track with their vision, with their goals, and what they're trying to do. The way I tend to look at it, I look at every person and say, what aspects of that person I admire, rather than the person as a whole, because one thing that you can't be is that individual. But what you can do is, if you actually take this to a level where you can learn and grow, then what you do is you admire certain aspects of it. The journey that I've had is different to the journey that the next person has had, and we've all had a different journey, and we're all at a different place. And to compare yourself to somebody else, holistically, I think is, in my view, is a thief of joy. It puts you in a bad position. You start making comparisons, and that comparison could be age, could be various other things, could be different levels of success. That's usually not a good place to be. You're better off comparing in terms of benchmarking certain skill sets. So what I've got is people that I look at from a company perspective to say, I like this particular business, or I like this particular trait, a particular skill set. And it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. It can be people who are politicians. For me, anyway, the some of their right sort of frame of mind, the right attitude, and I look at that in a positive light. I enjoy reading biographies, and what you find is, when you read somebody's biography, you actually learn in terms of the whole person. And we're never going to be in a position where we say, I'd love to be that particular person. And I think it's a slightly dangerous thing to do. So from my perspective, learn bits from them, take on board some of the things that you do, respect in terms of the skill set, but don't compare yourself necessarily. I think it can be quite a negative.